They say death is quiet, peaceful. They've never been there. The moment my heart stopped, I knew time had ended for me, but not for the world. Not yet. It happened on June 27, 2025, at precisely 3:14 a.m., in my home in the outskirts of Flagstaff, Arizona. My cat, Elijah, was the only witness. I remember his eyes widening in the dark, the pupils growing unnaturally wide just seconds before the room cracked open like a shell. My body collapsed in the hallway. My soul. I don't know where it went. Not up. Not down. Somewhere else. For 3 minutes and 11 seconds, I was legally dead. And something used those minutes to show me what was coming. It wasn't a tunnel. Not a warm light. Not my parents waiting with open arms. It was a mirror. A massive, silent mirror, hanging in the void. My reflection stood still, but behind me, things were moving. Unnatural shadows pacing the floor, looping like broken film. I tried to turn around, but I couldn't. The reflection smiled without my permission. Then the mirror cracked, and I fell into it. I woke up in the hospital screaming. The nurse said it was just a cardiac event. A small one, really. I was lucky. But I knew luck had nothing to do with it. That mirror didn't break because I died. It broke because something got out. Back home, everything was almost normal, that eerie almost you only notice when you've glimpsed behind the veil. My clocks had stopped at 3:14. Every single one. Analog, digital, even my old microwave. My phone reset itself to January 1st, 1970. Elijah wouldn't enter my bedroom. And the air. It had that strange, empty church quality. Thick, waiting. By July 1st, the heat had changed too, not hotter, just closer. The kind of air that presses on your skin like a warning. On TV, people joked about the solar weirdness, flares, anomalies, static interruptions. Nothing funny about it to me. Then came the dreams. In one, I stood in Times Square, completely empty. Billboards blinked erratically. Giant text, over and over. You were warned. You did not listen. In another, I was underground, in what looked like a forgotten subway tunnel. A train rumbled in the distance, but it never came. Only the sound grew louder, until I realized, it wasn't a train. It was breathing. I tried to tell my daughter, but she just laughed nervously. Mom, you're scaring me. Maybe it's the meds. I stopped trying after that. Let them think I was old and rattled. Let them sleep. But I was awake. And I knew something else was too. July 4th came, Independence Day. But the sky didn't look free. Clouds were static. That's the best way I can describe it, like bad reception in the heavens. Birds didn't fly. Fireworks misfired. And in every reflection, windows, car mirrors, even puddles, there was a lag. A delay. You'd move your hand and see it follow after. That night, I saw the mirror again. But this time, I wasn't alone. Behind me stood a figure, tall, indistinct, like a person wrapped in smoke. No eyes. Just the impression of watching. And the same words pulsed across the glass, over and over, like a heartbeat. July is not yours. You woke too soon. Do not warn them. I woke up with dried blood on my pillow. A nosebleed. I hadn't had one in decades. The clocks were working again, but now they all blinked 7:07. And that's when I understood. This wasn't a glitch. This was a reset. The first time I heard the voice, it came from the old AM radio in my garage, the one I hadn't touched since George W. Bush was in office. July 6th, 3:14 a.m. again. I was awake, because sleep had become a thing of the past. The dial wasn't tuned to anything, but static wasn't just static anymore. It breathed. It pulsed like a heartbeat. I leaned in, and from beneath the hiss and crackle, came a man's voice. Faint. Garbled. Repeating. You saw the glass, you saw through it. It saw you back. I dropped the radio. It didn't break. It just shut off. That same day, I took a walk into town. I needed to see if the strangeness was just mine, or if the world had begun to notice. Flagstaff had always been sleepy in the summer. Tourists coming up from Phoenix, coffee shops full of sunburned hikers. But that morning, the streets were wrong. People were walking, talking, buying things, but it all felt like a performance. Like actors improvising a play with no script. Their conversations didn't land. Eye contact didn't hold. I passed a boy sitting on the curb outside the post office, drawing something on the sidewalk with red chalk. I stopped, because the shape looked familiar. It was the mirror. The cracks. The same jagged geometry I'd seen in the void. You know what this is? I asked. The boy didn't look up. It's what the world really looks like underneath. I crouched. Who told you that? He smiled, but his lips didn't move. The voice I heard was the same from the radio. We're inside the fracture now, Margaret. You remember too much. That's why it sees you. I left town shaking. Back home, I found something I hadn't seen in years, a handwritten letter. No return address. Postmarked 2 days before. My name, in neat block letters. Margaret Lane. Do not open until July 7th. I opened it anyway. Inside was one sentence. He will come when the air thickens. And then, a set of coordinates. In the middle of the Coconino forest. I didn't sleep that night. Not even tried. At exactly 2:33 a.m., Elijah hissed and ran into the closet. My bedroom light flickered 3 times, a rhythm I now recognized as invitation. And then the air changed. He appeared just outside the screen door, not smoke this time, but a man. Or the echo of one. Dressed in old clothes, faded denim and a plaid shirt, but his outline vibrated. Like a bad signal. I stepped out. Are you the one who wrote me? I asked. He didn't answer with words. He opened his mouth, and I heard my own voice speaking back to me. You should not have crossed back. You were not meant to carry memory. July was never supposed to repeat. But you fractured it. What is July? I whispered. The holding place, he said. A loop between endings. A womb. And now, it's breaking. Then he reached out and touched my forehead with 2 fingers. I felt every clock I'd ever seen stop at once. My first watch. My father's alarm. The digital display on the oven. I fell to my knees. He vanished like a signal ending. When I came to, the sun was rising. Elijah sat on the porch, staring into the woods. The radio came back on by itself. July is not linear, the man's voice said. July is recursion. And every time it loops, fewer remember the way out. And then silence. July 7, 2025. The birds stopped singing. Again. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in 2 hours. People began complaining of memory loss, not just what they had for breakfast, but names, faces, years. A man on the news forgot who the president was. Another forgot his own son. And me? I remembered everything. Which meant I was no longer just a witness. I was a participant. I left for the forest at dusk. Not because I was brave. Because I knew if I didn't follow the coordinates, something else would come find me. The letter hadn't lied. I plugged the location into an old GPS I found in my garage, and even though the screen glitched and flashed every few minutes, it led me north, deep into the Coconino wilderness. The roads narrowed, then disappeared entirely. I parked, left the car, and started walking. With each step, the silence grew louder. No birds. No wind. Not even the hum of distant insects. It was like the earth had paused itself in anticipation. Or fear. And then I saw it. At the end of a narrow path was a clearing, carved too perfectly to be natural. In the center stood a metal structure, about the height of a man. Like a monolith made of rust and teeth. It pulsed faintly, like it was breathing through the metal. I approached, and something inside my chest shifted. Like a string being plucked in a dimension I couldn't see. There were symbols all over it, carved, layered, repeating. A cracked infinity sign. A spiral folding in on itself. An eye facing inward. And then the whisper returned. Not a sound. More like a sensation at the base of the skull, vibrating in ancient rhythm. This is where the first breach happened. Time unraveled here, not in an explosion, but in a decision. Someone chose to return. You were not the first. I reached out to touch the surface, and everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the forest. I was in a copy of my own home. But it wasn't right. The colors were off, like old Polaroids, too red, too yellow. The furniture looked like it remembered being real but forgot how. There were no reflections. Every mirror was covered. Every window fogged. And in the hallway, a door that shouldn't exist. It pulsed like the metal tower. I stepped toward it. Margaret. The voice came from behind me. It was my daughter's voice, but wrong. Hollow. As if spoken by someone who had only studied her. You were given the exit. You chose the return. This is the consequence. I turned, and there she stood. Or something that looked like her. But the eyes were black mirrors. No light. Just memory bouncing back at me. You're not her, I said. The thing smiled. No. But she will come to this place, if the breach holds. And then she will see the loop. And then she will choose. I felt cold spread through my ribs, as if the world was deciding whether or not to exhale. Why me? I asked. Why was I brought back? It didn't answer. Instead, it turned toward the impossible door and stepped through. Without hesitation, I followed. I emerged back into the forest, or something like it. But now it was night. The monolith was gone. In its place, a spiral burned into the ground, glowing faintly, like embers in deep ash. And the air had a taste. Like metal and old water. Like static and memory. I looked at my watch. It blinked. July 3, 2025. Again. The world had rewound. But I remembered. And if I remembered, it meant the loop wasn't just restarting. It was shortening. Tightening. Like a noose. And something was trying to keep me inside it. When I got home, there were 2 letters waiting for me. Same handwriting. Same ink. One said, "You are the tether." The other, "Do not enter the door on July 13th. I burned the second letter without reading further. Because I knew myself. And I knew that on July 13th, I would open it. The first time I forgot my own name, I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror. July 9th. I just finished brushing my teeth when the world stuttered. A flicker, like a skipped frame in a video. My toothbrush fell to the sink. I looked up and the face in the mirror blinked after I did. And then the name, my name, just disappeared. I stood there, staring at myself, feeling that familiar panic climb up the throat. Who am I? My lips moved. I whispered a name. But it wasn't mine. Evelyn. It was like the sound was waiting in my mouth, rehearsed but never spoken before. I dropped to my knees. Because Evelyn Lane was my sister. She died in 1983. And for a full 3 minutes, I remembered her life like it was mine. She had a red bicycle. She fell from it in August 1972 and scraped her chin. She kissed a boy named Daniel under a tree behind our school. She died in a river accident before she turned 20. These weren't fuzzy childhood recollections. They were lived experiences, muscle memory, smells, weight, regret. Something was feeding them into me. And then I heard it, faint, like it came from beneath the floorboards. You are the tether. You are where all timelines collapse. The next day, I visited the cemetery. Evelyn's grave was still there, tucked beneath the oak trees in the far corner of Forest Hill Cemetery. But something was wrong with the engraving. It now read, Evelyn Margaret Lane. 1964 to 1983. Beloved mother. Mother? She never had children. She never lived long enough. I reached out and touched the headstone. Flash. I was in a hospital room. Machines beeping. A child crying. A boy, pale, brown-haired, holding my hand. Mom, he said. Are you gonna go again? I blinked. And I was back in the cemetery. On the ground. Breathless. That child didn't exist in my life. That night, my television turned on by itself. Every channel was static, except one. A black screen with a single line of text, white and pulsing. July 13th, the door opens. And then, a woman's voice, soft, slow, echoing like through water. Evelyn remembered too much. She broke through. And so will you. July 11th. I stopped answering the phone. People I hadn't spoken to in years were calling me, dead people. My mother. A friend who vanished in '96. Each voice said the same phrase before the line cut out. It's almost your time again. I looked through old photo albums and found pictures that had changed. Evelyn was in my wedding photo. She was holding a child I didn't recognize. In one, she was at my daughter's high school graduation. She was living the life I thought was mine. Or maybe I was living hers. I went to the attic. I hadn't been up there since my husband died. In an old trunk, I found a journal I never remembered writing. It was signed. Margaret E. Lane, July 2024. Inside. Dozens of pages, all the same line written over and over. I crossed over when I died. I brought her back with me. What if Evelyn didn't die in 1983? What if I did, and she took my place? What if this whole fractured month was her trying to return? On the morning of July 12th, I found another note on my pillow. No envelope. No ink. Just impressions in the fabric, like something had pressed the message into the fibers. Tomorrow, the door opens. You must choose who stays. I looked at my hands. They were both Margaret's and Evelyn's. The lines had blurred. Time had folded. And I understood now. This month was never meant to happen. It was a collision of selves. And the breach would only close when one of us, me or her, made the final choice. July 13th, 2025. I didn't wake up, I arrived. The transition between sleep and wakefulness had ceased to exist. No dreams. No dreams because there was no sleep. Just a sudden placement in my body, like my soul had been inserted manually. The entire house felt like it had taken a breath and was holding it. Wood creaked not from weight or wind, but like it was reacting to awareness. And I already knew what day it was. The door day. The day I was warned not to open anything. There it was. At the end of the hallway where there had never been a door before, plain, white, unmarked, perfectly still. No handle. No frame. Just a slab of impossible material embedded in the wall like a scar on time. But it wasn't the door that scared me. It was what I heard behind it. Whispers. Hundreds of voices, overlapping, echoing, speaking through each other. Some were mine. Some were Evelyn's. Some were other versions of me I couldn't place, older, younger, colder, kinder. All me, all not me. And one voice louder than the rest. A child's. Mom, let me out. I didn't have children. I had a daughter, yes, but this was a boy's voice. The same boy from the flashback in the cemetery. The one who had called Evelyn, Mom. I put my hand against the door. Warm. It recognized me. I spoke aloud. Who are you? Silence. Then a single, breathless answer. I'm what happens if you leave. That's when the wall to my left peeled open like paper, revealing the forest again. The monolith stood there, half sunken in soil, glowing dim red. But this time it wasn't alone. There were others. Figures in the trees. Watching. Dozens of them, barely visible, just silhouettes where the light didn't reach. All the same height. All unmoving. I turned back to the door. Now it had a handle. I opened it. The air was impossibly cold, like stepping into a freezer that held not food, but years. And on the other side was a room outside of time. No walls. No sky. No ground. Just space made of glass and fog. In the center, a mirror. The mirror. The same one I'd fallen through when I died. Still cracked. Still pulsing. In front of it, a woman. Back turned. Same silver hair as mine. Same curve to the shoulders. Same hesitation in the posture. Evelyn? I asked. My voice trembled. She turned. And I saw my own face, but younger. Eyes sharper. Smile gentler. She wasn't evil. She wasn't twisted. She just looked tired. I never meant to take your place, she said. You stepped through first. But the fracture let us both in. And the world, it chose. My knees gave out. Why now? Why is it happening now? Because July is the in-between. Every 7 years, time slips. The veil thins. This month should have been erased, but you woke up inside it. And I couldn't go back to sleep. Behind her, the mirror pulsed once, slow and heavy. I saw my daughter in the reflection. Then the boy. Then myself, dying over and over in hospitals I never remembered entering. I can't stay here, Evelyn said. And you can't either. Only one of us fits. She offered me her hand. Palm up. No threat. Just a choice. Then the voice came again. The boy. Mom, please choose. But whose mother was I? Which version of me was real? I closed my eyes. All timelines converged. Every possibility, every choice, regret, death, kiss, breath, swirled like a maelstrom inside my chest. Evelyn's hand. My life. The fracture. The boy. My daughter. The loop. And then I chose. I reached out and took Evelyn's hand. The room exploded in white. I woke up on my couch. Elijah was curled beside me. Sunlight filtered through the window. Calendar said July 14th. For the first time in weeks, the date moved forward. I went to the mirror. My face stared back, but something in the eyes was new. Or, someone. You read that right. The calendar in my kitchen, the old paper one I bought in January at the gas station with the photos of Arizona sunsets, it didn't stop at July 31st. It had a July 32nd. I thought it was a printing error at first, a misaligned square or smudge. But no, it was clean. Intentional. Bold letters. Tuesday, July 32. Circled in red. The ink wasn't from a pen. It was from inside the paper. All the clocks were frozen. The microwave. My wristwatch. My phone. 3:14 a.m. Of course. Outside, the sky was neither dark nor light. It was static. Like a television tuned to a dead channel but flattened across the sky. My house felt hollow, like the real version of it had been peeled away, and what remained was just enough to contain me, like a cage carved in memory. And then, the door reappeared. Not in the hallway this time. But in the sky. It floated above the pine trees. Wide open. Not inviting, but expectant. A wound. A mouth. And beneath it, they stood waiting. Versions of me. Dozens. Maybe more. Some in hospital gowns. Some in wedding dresses. One wore a U.S. Army uniform, I never served. Another held a baby I didn't recognize. None of them blinked. They looked up at the door. Then at me. And in unison, they spoke. One of us must stay. One of us must seal the loop. I stepped outside. The ground didn't feel like earth anymore, it was soft, spongy. Like walking on compressed history. Above me, in the door's frame, the boy stood. Not calling for help this time. He looked right at me. You made the choice before. You have to make it again. I shouted back, who are you? His eyes softened. Not like a child's. Like something that had tried to be a child, and failed. I'm the result. I fell to my knees. Because I remembered. All at once. The boy was our child, Evelyn's and mine. From a reality where we didn't die in separate timelines. Where the fracture didn't happen. Where memory didn't split identity like a glass knife. But he never got to exist. Not fully. Because I came back. And Evelyn tried to follow. And this. July 32 ND. It was his womb. His cage. His sentence. Then the sky cracked. Not thunder. A fracture. Like someone tearing the film reel of reality itself. Light poured through the seams, not golden, not white, but a color so final it had no name. All the versions of me turned toward it. Some cried. Some laughed. One collapsed into ash. The boy extended his hand. If you stay, I can leave. If you leave, I'll disappear. You must choose. I looked around. The world was folding. The trees collapsing into two-dimensional sketches. The ground peeling up like old wallpaper. Everything was ending, except this moment. Frozen. Held open like a held breath. I stood. I've lived her life. I've lived mine. Neither of us belongs here anymore. He nodded, slowly. I took one final breath of the static air. Felt it burn down my throat like frost in memory. Then I stepped through the door in the sky. I woke up on a bench. A real bench. In front of a hospital in Sedona. The date on the newspaper next to me, August 1st, 2025. August. The world had moved on. I checked my name on my driver's license. It said, Margaret Evelyn Lane. I smiled. Because I knew who I was now. I was both. I was all of her. And the boy? He walked past me. Real. Breathing. Laughing with a woman I'd never met. His mother. Another version of us, whole and unfractured. They didn't look back. But that was okay. Some stories aren't meant to loop.